for another episode of the Cozy Corner of Cinema. This is episode number 223, being recorded on Wednesday, July 8th, 2026. Yeah, that's right, two episodes in 1 week, playing a little bit of catch up from an episode that I had missed maybe about a week or two ago, but now fully caught up and recording this sitting in a different spot. It's been a beautiful day today, and one of our cats has been enjoying the window thoroughly. And then, right when I go into the film room to get on the laptop to look up some stuff before recording, she migrated over to the chair, went right to sleep. So I had to move the chair out of the way and sit on this step stool. But it's actually not too bad. It's a little uncomfortable, but there's a certain level of intimacy sitting in this position close to the ground that adds a whole other layer of coziness. And I'm going to look behind me, and she is still sleeping. So she will not be perturbed. How do I say that? I'm not even going to try to say that. Anyways, I hope you all are doing very well. The egregious heat seems to be behind us, knock on wood there, and that's great. We can enjoy the wonderful weather that we've been having lately. Today was absolutely gorgeous. Got the window open right here. Got to run the dehumidifier for a little bit just to get some of the humidity out of here. I got all these films around me, and if you want to make sure they're kept in fairly good condition, at least not too much moisture, water damage, anything like that. It's been a lot of work from where I'm recording this right now. I'm in a new environment. I got just truly surrounded by films. I have a shelf that's half organized. I have stacks and stacks of films behind me, to the left of me, in front of me. I mean, it is truly like all encompassing. I got some films to the side here that still need to be put away. Some recent pickups, and that's not even saying the films in the other room that I have by the television that will need to be watched. 'Cause I've been going through my collection, organizing it, holding on to some stuff, selling some stuff, and it's been nice to kind of see some of these titles that I come across, and I go, oh yeah, I forgot I owned that. I wanted to watch that because I keep them all organized on a couple different notepad documents, but it is kind of nice just to put them aside, take them aside, and go, yeah, I did want to see this, and finally able to check them out. So I got another stack here that still has to be put away. Like I said, I also have some other titles here. Excuse me, because the Criterion sale is going on right now. So I ended up picking up a couple titles there. It's all almost all stuff that I had seen before, but I wanted to own. I picked up Birth by Jonathan Glazer, the Nicole Kidman film from 2004, I think it was. I don't remember what year that was, but I watched that for the first time a couple months ago and was blown away, truly blown away. I don't want to choose favorites or anything. I always say that before I go to choose a favorite, but it is unquestionably my favorite Jonathan Glazer film. I was so emotionally racked during this movie. During the film, it was just brilliant. And when I say emotionally, I don't mean as if I'm like crying or anything. Just some of the revelations, some of the stuff that's going on. Just such a mature, thoughtful, just incredible film. Picked up as well A Man and... Oh, wait, no, you know what? I did that last time because I also picked up A Man and a Woman from Claude Lelouch. And I've not seen that, but I picked that up the previous time because I also picked up Testament as well, which I have seen, I rewatched, and that is fantastic. That is, I think, might be a masterpiece. But A Man and a Woman, I thought I had seen, but I have not. I have the soundtrack, and I've listened to the soundtrack actually quite a bit, but I've not actually watched the film. I've been mistakenly crediting it to Godard for a while. I think I was getting mixed up with A Married Woman for whatever reason. That title sounded... for whatever reason, I was crossing in my head. But yeah, Man and Woman I picked up last time, but I also picked up, what I got here? All titles that I had seen, I think, except for one other. Oh, no, that's right. I also grabbed Playtime by Jacques Tati, the 4K of that. That's a film I have not seen, and I've been very curious about. I've heard Coppola talk a lot about that film, how much of an inspiration of that film was to him. I've only seen one Jacques Tati film, and that was Mon Uncle, and I wasn't crazy about it, but I would also perhaps be willing to rewatch, given context. on his other films if I've responded to them. I had a sort of similar situation with John Cassavetes, where I'm still not the biggest fan of his directed films, but I'm able to garner a new appreciation for them, having seen more of his work. And of course, he has a couple that I like. A Woman Under the Influence is fantastic. Opening Night is great. There were just some that I wasn't as hot on, but I can respect the type of film that he's made. I got here the 4K. Oh, I should also say the 4K playtime was a 4K, but I got the 4K here of It Was Just an Accident, the Palme d'Or winning Jafar Panahi film from last year, not Academy Award nominated. Fantastic film. I mentioned that before. I picked up a 4K of Sentimental Value by Joachim Trier, and I don't want to be rude, and I won't be rude. I'll say it as politely as I can, but I don't think they should have went with this artwork. Enough people have commented on it, but I will leave it at that. Yeah, I picked up the 4K of that, and then I also picked up the 4K of Viridiana. Maybe my favorite Buñuel film. I don't know. It's very different than his other work. It's a very somber, very dark film from Buñuel, who's known for, I think, more of his comedic, surreal films. Especially, I think the later part of his career is possibly more talked about and known than his earlier work. This is 61. I also did pick up Elle, or is it Eel? I don't know how to say it. A little while ago from Buñuel. That'll be watched in due time. But yeah, I had the opportunity to rewatch Viridiana theatrically a couple months ago, and was just taken aback by just how fantastic it was. Just a really powerful, dark film. What I would maybe my favorite Buñuel. I don't know. It's funny. I keep saying not to choose favorites, and then I go ahead and choose favorites. But yeah, he's another filmmaker too who. I think the first film of his I saw was The Discreet Charm, and I didn't really respond to it. And then the more of his work I saw, The Exterminating Angel, I liked quite a bit, and then it made me appreciate The Discreet Charm more. And then, of course, Phantom of Liberty, and That Obscure Object of Desire, and he's a filmmaker who, and actually, I did read his autobiography, My Last Sigh, and that is one of my favorite books on film I've ever read. It's a pretty quick read. It's just great to read about his early work with the Surrealists and sort of the infighting between them and how they thought he sold out because he started getting more known for his work and his relationship with Salvador Dali, and just a really, really excellent read. I can't recommend that enough. I have a bunch of random Vinegar Syndrome titles here. I did have stuff to talk about for this episode, but because the stack is here, I'm just kind of looking at what I have. Excuse the pauses. I have coffee and I have water here, so don't mind me with those pauses. But I don't want to make noises in the microphone like this is like ASMR or something like that because it sounds like there's bugs under your skin. But these films I've got to put away. A lot of adult titles here that I've been watching. This one, Come Below the Horn, this is a Swedish film, directed by Joseph Sarno. And this is a cool film. It's a little long, it's 2 hours, it doesn't really need to be. There's a couple scenes of some pretty gnarly sexuality. I think there's one notable scene involving a large sausage that, you watch and you go, oh boy, they're really going for that. I just watched something recently and it was an adult film recently where somebody also had like a sausage, and it was implied they were going to pleasure themselves with it, but then they don't show it. So I don't remember for the life of me what movie that was. But it is a cool film. I'm not the most knowledgeable about a lot of Swedish stuff. I'm more knowledgeable, if as limited as that is, about the Golden Age and a lot of the domestic films. But Joseph Sarno is a pretty well-known name. But some other random stuff here too. Let's see here. I got Driller. This was a Wild Eye release. I reviewed this on a couple of acquaintances podcast. Faces of Death, the 4K here. It's just funny because Face of Death 2 just got announced for 4K as well, and I did pick that up. And I wasn't going to upgrade this because I had the Gorgon Blu-ray. I gave that to an acquaintance, but this had new footage that hadn't been seen before. I'd recommend watching the video that Vinegar Syndrome put out about the restoration, and actually they did one as well for Faces of Death 2 about how tricky it was to restore these films. I don't think all the features are ported over from that Gorgon release, though, which is make or break for some people. But to me, it really depends. I did really want this release, so but I'm not in a rush to rewatch Face of Death. Again, I've said before, but I think I'm more interested in everything around Faces of Death than I am actually about the film itself. But I don't think I've seen Face of Death 2. I'm pretty sure I haven't. So that'll be cool to see, and I imagine I'll probably put out the rest. But I think after 4, I think 5 and 6 is all reused material, or at least it's not. It was sort of like the more they went on, I think the less real it was getting, or the more recycled footage it was getting. I don't know. But I got a whole bunch of other stuff here, other random titles. Human Lanterns, I just watched recently for the first time, and this was a cool movie. This is a Shaw Brothers film, cool horror movie. Has a new cut on it, or at least a newly restored cut that I think was unavailable recently. Let's see. A newly restored from its 35 millimeter original camera negative with okay, never mind. But anyways, had a different ending on there, which I think was it just ended earlier. But either way, Human Lanterns, cool stuff. And then a lot of other kind of adult stuff that I was going through, trying to keep up with the adult titles this year. Love Letters of a Portuguese Nun. That was a Jess Franco movie. Triple feature of Maylin versus Serena, which I reviewed on Peephole Pictures. Oriental Hawaii also has Maylin in that, I believe. And then Las Vegas Girls. Those two weren't very good. Nasty Nurses and Let's Talk Sex. Those were okay. Raw Talent, I reviewed on Acquaintances podcast. Satanic Sisters, I did not like at all. Snake Eyes, I think that was a Cecil Howard movie. Or maybe it wasn't. It's on the bottom of the stack. Yeah, it was Cecil Howard. I did like that. The Naughty World of Stanley Long, and that's a box set. Actually, I also have from Stanley Long his Adventures trilogy. It's like Adventures of a Taxi Cab Driver, I think, and then Adventures of a Plumber, and then Adventures of something else. I actually see it from the shelf, and yeah, box set was the Naughty World of Stanley Long box set was not for me. It was a little repetitive, a little dull. And then There Are No More Closets, Volume 1, the 2 films by Wakefield Poole, Take 1, and Moving. Take 1, I think, is more interesting of the two. Actually, I had that DVD. I may have given yeah, I did give it away. That's right. Take 1, I thought was more interesting. Starts off better than it ends. And then Moving, I thought was a little dull. But again, I'd also recommend his autobiography, Dirty Pool. It made me appreciate those films more because he had sort of the rise and the fall in his adult film career, and then his life after that. But he's a very fascinating guy, and he's led quite a life. And so yeah, I imagine we'll have to get, if this is volume 1, Bijou. Boys in the Sand. I think Boys in the Sand 2 was shot on video, or it was maybe it wasn't shot on video. I think it was later though, so I'd be curious if they included that, because I know in the Babylon Pink Blu-ray they included 2 and 3, which are video titles. And then Bible, I would imagine they would do. I don't know if they actually released the DVD of Bible. I don't know, but either way. And boy, it'd be cool if they happen to come across or happen to find anything of Body of a Woman, the lost film he did with the Finleys. There's a trailer online somewhere. I can't for the life of me find it, but apparently it is out there. And there's a poster, but who knows? Maybe one day that'll be found. Never say never. But anyways, I got a lot of. I'm just overwhelmed by all these titles to go through, but I guess it's part of the fun. It's part of the the spectacle of it all is, you see these titles. It's like, oh yeah, I've been wanting to see this, and then you watch it and it's great or it's not so good, but it's having it and all that. And I talked last week about sort of with Sony ending their run of physical games or physical releases and what that means for the film market. And I talked about before with sort of my changing patterns in collecting. I'm not quite as buy as I was before. I'm a bit more curating what I'm purchasing, and even the stuff that I haven't seen. The majority of it I'm keeping. There's only some stuff where I'm like that I haven't seen, but I know I'm never gonna I have really no interest in watching, and I kind of question why I had even purchased it to begin with. But it's been an ongoing process. But it's been rewarding because then I get to find films in my collection that I had forgot about or was going to come to later that I jump them to the front of the line. I end up watching, and makes for interesting viewings where I can go, oh wow, I got to appreciate that I watched this sooner than I thought I would. I watched my 4K of The Hitcher, Second Sight. I hadn't seen it before. It's one of those big horror films I hadn't seen, and I also watched the documentary Charlie Victor Romeo. Very fascinating documentary. I don't know how much we'd go back and rewatch it. It's almost like a stage play, really. But it's very maybe it's a docudrama more like it because it is recreating real kind of real kind of transcripts. So I guess you could probably categorize it that way. But either way, a lot of stuff to watch. A lot of stuff to watch. And speaking of watching, let's talk about S. Craig Zahler. So I recently rewatched his film Dragged Across Concrete. S. Craig Zahler, I've mentioned before on the show. I've talked about how much of a fan I am of his work. I think he's one of just the truly great, contemporary filmmakers. And it's funny, if I didn't rewatch this before I did my top 20 of my 21st century so far, but this may have been a short list. This or Brawl and Cell Block 99 may have been... Oh, I know Brawl and Cell Block was definitely on the short list of possibles. But Dragged Across Concrete may have been there too. I really, really love this film. And when I first saw it, I liked it, but it just kind of kept sitting with me, kind of kept growing. And then the more I thought about it, I'm like, you know what? I did want to rewatch that. And I was really just blown away by it on this viewing. I'll talk about S. Craig Zahler in a little bit, even though I've talked about him before on the show, but how much I admire him and how much he is just such a total inspiration. But yeah, Dragged Across Concrete, 2018. It's got three central characters here. We have Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn, who are cops who are suspended one day for using excessive force on a suspect. It's not even excessive force. It's not as if that's where part of the title comes from is Dragged Across Concrete. They kind of like put their foot on him and then push him against this like steel kind of grate. But anyways, somebody's recording it. They get suspended and they end up, Mel Gibson really goes to Vince Vaughn to go after this one other guy, this sort of like criminal organization that's going on. Anyways, we also follow Tori Kittles, who plays his character Henry. And he has an involvement with them and the organization and eventually the cops as well, and they end up kind of crossing paths. But what I love about S. Craig Zahler is that you watch his films and they're so distinctly his. The way that he shoots violence is somehow it's equally brutal, but then can also be over the top as well in a way that still works, in a way that doesn't actually negate from the tone of the film. Because here the violence all feels very matter of fact. It feels very brutal. Because it has a serious tone throughout, but then it'll have some lighter moments to kind of alleviate it, but not in the way where it distracts from the film. It's actually, if anything, as much of a crime film as it is a dark comedy at times. Maybe not as much. I would say, not as much, but there's a lot of dark comedy in here. There's one long section of the film that just didn't work for me the first time, but this time I thought was just so cruel but was just so funny. With how dark it is, and that is there's almost a short film within the film with Jennifer Carpenter's character, and I don't want to give that whole thing away, but where that goes to, the amount of time that Zahler spends on that, and then when he does that, it made me laugh out loud. I thought I can't even believe he did that, and I think that's part of the reason why he hasn't made a new directed film since, because I read that Zahler is very adamant about having Final Cut. So you think about a studio who would go, let's take, like, this is an easy 10 minutes to take out here. This is just its own kind of mini thing. But Zahler is apparently adamant about that. And that does, the first time I saw it, I thought, yeah, I don't know if that really works here. But in the context of the film, this time it just totally worked for me. And this is almost 3 hours, but and it flew by, because you'll have these like long sections of the film that it takes its time, but it's still so engaging. I mean, there's like long sequences where Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn's character are just at a stakeout in a car, and they show you just how egregiously slow of a process that a stakeout can be, where you're just waiting and waiting for possibly one car. And Mel Gibson's just subtle annoyance at Vince Vaughn's character, where Vince Vaughn is just in the car, and the only noise is him eating the sandwich, and he's eating it so slowly. And Mel Gibson makes a comment about it, and it's just so funny. The two of them are so great together. Vince Vaughn was the star of Brawl and Cell Block 99 as well, and Jennifer Carpenter was in that too. And the violence in that film is much bigger. It is, I won't even say totally unrealistic, but it's definitely heightened. Because that is a, when he gets into this underworld of criminality, of criminal activity, and things start getting really, I don't even want to say really over the top. When they start getting heightened, that's actually the key word to use. The violence is a bit more cartoonish there, but it still is brutal. Because even Bone Tomahawk does that a little bit, where there's like that the stretch more than halfway through, and I don't want to give away the film or anything like that, because one of the great things about Bone Tomahawk is that when when there's a big kind of bout of violence, it almost is like a jump scare, and they don't even make a big thing out of it. It's like they're just passing through somewhere, and then suddenly they're attacked, and it's like, whoa, what's going on? But like that whole scene is great. It's brutal, but then you have like kind of like a bigger scene later on, which I think people kind of talk about more, and it's heightened in that specific situation, but it doesn't feel like, there's not like blood spraying everywhere. It's just so violent that it kind of raises that level of like, okay, this isn't just like a stabbing and a gutting. This is like something far more visceral and far more I didn't want to say filmic, because it's not as it's unrealistic, but it's far more maybe cinematic. But Dragged Across Concrete, I mean, it's I don't, you know it's so distinctly Zahler's. The way the characters interact with each other, the way the film is not afraid to make just outright unlikable characters that you are following through. The morality is so fascinating in this, because we see sort of the lives that Mel and Vince are living. And actually, even what they do with Vince Vaughn's storyline, again, it goes back to that dark comedy, where the resolution of that, there's just a reaction that somebody has, and it's just so funny, because it's just so, again, it's dark comedy. And Mel, his family, they're living in a bad neighborhood. He really wants to get them out. He's really just, this is a guy who, it's interesting casting Mel, who's such a big personality, but he's very restrained. But you have this feeling, just rage inside him, where, his daughter, is getting harassed by these kids on the street. They're like throwing drinks at her and stuff, and the wife is sick, and he's just like, man, at this point I can't take it anymore, but I'm not gonna lash out. I'm gonna do something actually about it, even if I don't have any sort of official right to do it. I mean, you could say it is a vigilante movie, but it's not in the way that you would expect. It's one where when I talk about before, when people talk about, oh, this is like a 70s movie, this is like a 70s movie, and they, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, in terms of like this feels, of Zahler's films, this feels like a total just cop, a cop 70s movie, where they are not afraid to make these characters unlikable, which I think is something that a lot of contemporary films succumb to. Is I think they're too afraid to make certain characters unlikable, where there's a certain oh, well, the audience can't relate with them. I don't need to like a character as long as I'm engaged by them. And there's there's straight up criminals in this film who are out there killing people, but they're so fascinating characters, and I'm like, man, I'm just so on board with them. And then the third act of this, that whole, it is a shootout, but it's a shootout that really takes its time. And where it goes to with a couple of the characters, it really had me on the edge of my seat, because I knew the outcome, but I'm thinking like, man, when is this thing going to drop? Somebody is going to do something they shouldn't. And that whole resolution was great, and the ending, man, everything about this just worked for me. Everything that didn't work the first time for me worked 1,000% this time. Because even like I said, I think because I was riding such a high off of Brawl and Cell Block 99 when I first saw it, and this is a different kind of film, but it has that same sort of that style of directing in a way, where Zahler is really good at directing just just they're framing wide open shots, and there's not a lot of score in it. You know, he'll have needle drops of like old blues songs or old kind of like, you know, classic jazz songs or anything like that, and it all fits in the film. It never feels like I'm just playing these songs because I like them. It actually matches the specific tone that he has set. Distinctly from as much as similar as a lot of those elements are to Bronze Stuff like 99, but they also feel so tied together as well, much in the same way of Bone Tomahawk, where you know, some of the directing choices in that feel like almost like a combination of Brawl and Dragged Across Concrete, of mixing the realistic with the heightened. That works just so well. And with Zahler, I mean, I remember listening to an interview with him, and it was just like one of the most inspirational things I've ever heard. Just he just talked about his output and just constantly, you know, he's constantly writing. Because he's a novelist as well, and he's a musician, and he just talks about all the screenplays that he's written that haven't been produced, and some that have, that he weren't really exactly his, that weren't the types of films that he would have made. Which is funny because he wrote Puppet Master, Littlest Reich, and it has so many elements in there. Not just the writing, but the directing feels like Zahler directed it, but it doesn't feel like a Zahler film. And that's a film that I think is okay. It doesn't totally work for me, and he said that the script wasn't exactly what he would have. It wasn't like, I don't know if he got final cut on what was included in the film or not, because it was just a script. But it feels like those elements are there. But it doesn't all come together for me. And there was something else he wrote. I think it was like Asylum Blackout or something that I haven't seen. But apparently, I don't think he has any real attachment to. But apparently, he's been trying to get his next film off of the ground, The Bookie and the Bruiser. I have no idea what the status of it is. It says post-production, but who knows? And you got to wonder why a distributor like Neon or A24 or one of these distributors that, like, I mean, because I don't understand why they don't just give him, you know, a couple million and just let him do what he wants. You know, I mean, especially now. I mean, look at like A24. I mean, look, the financial success they had with like Backrooms alone. It's like they can afford to lose some money on it, and you could figure that they would throw him, you know, some money or anything like that. Because Lionsgate, or it wasn't Lionsgate. It was like a subsidiary of Lionsgate put these films out. Or at least put out Dragged Across Concrete. I can't remember who put out his previous two, but I know that they wanted him to cut out some stuff in Dragged to lower the runtime, and he wouldn't do it. So I don't know, but apparently next year they're starting production on a film that he wrote. I forgot the name of it. It was the Brigands of Rattle Creek, which is being directed, strangely enough, by Park Chan-wook. So I'm curious about that. I guess I'm a little more optimistic because, I mean, it's co-written by Zahler and Park Chan-wook, so we'll see about that. I love Park Chan-wook, but this is something where I would have kind of preferred Zahler to direct his own script, because it's so specifically him that, as much as a fan I am of Park Chan-wook, he has his own style of directing that I'm curious to see how it'll match with Zahler's script. You know, I'm optimistic. You know, we got two incredibly talented filmmakers right here, and we'll see how they all mesh. But I don't know. We'll see in due time. But anyways, well, the cat is still sleeping. I have a little bit of coffee left. It's still pretty warm, so I can finish that off. And we are just about out of time for this episode. Guys, it is a wonderful day. Get outside, get that vitamin D. Make sure you're staying hydrated enough, because you forget about it. You go to the bathroom and it's more yellow than a Simpson. So make sure you're staying hydrated on that. And that's it for this episode. So I appreciate you guys listening. You guys take care. Make sure you're staying true to yourself and to your art, staying dedicated to yourself, and making sure you're not a passenger in your own life. So take care, guys. All the best.